Jia Kim stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel, watching the stars blur as they approached Nexus Station. Her reflection showed a woman of average height with dark hair pulled back in a simple bun. Nothing about her looked special or changed, and that was the problem. "Final briefing in 10 minutes," said a voice behind her. "Try not to embarrass us this time." Jia turned to face Director Han. His cybernetic eyes glowed faintly blue as they scanned her. Those eyes could see in 16 different light spectrums and record everything they saw. Like most of the human delegation, Han had changed his body to be better, stronger, faster. "I'll be there," Jia said. Han didn't leave. "The Celestials will be at this summit. Every species is sending their best, and Earth sends—" He waved a metal-enhanced hand at her. "You, still stubbornly human. Still completely human," Jia corrected. "There's a difference." Han shook his head. "Your outdated thinking endangers this mission. The galaxy doesn't respect weakness." After he left, Jia touched her own face. Plain skin, regular eyes, a body that could tire, feel pain, and would one day die. She had chosen to keep herself this way when everyone else changed. The other delegates thought she was foolish. Or worse, that she held humanity back. The briefing room hummed with technology. As Jia took her seat, the other 3 members of the Earth delegation were already there, their enhanced bodies perfect and alert despite the long journey. Commander Tay nodded at Jia. The security chief wore her exoskeleton openly, the black metal frame adding half, a meter to her height. She could lift 2 tons and run at highway speeds. Battle scars marked the parts of her face that remained flesh. "Good of you to join us," said Chief Science Officer Doyen without looking up from his data screens. His fingers moved in a blur across the controls. His brain had been genetically modified to process information 10 times faster than a normal human. "Let's begin," said Director Han. "Nexus Station is now 6 hours away. This summit brings together 17 spacefaring species to discuss the Outer Rim expansion." A hologram appeared showing a massive space station shaped like a wheel with many spokes. Thousands of ships surrounded it. "The Celestials rarely attend these events," Han continued. "Their presence makes this our most important diplomatic mission in 50 years. Jia studied the images of the Celestials that appeared next. They looked almost human but stood 3 meters tall, with blue-white skin that seemed to glow from within. Their eyes had no pupils, just pools of light. "Approach with caution," warned Commander Tay. "They may look peaceful, but a single Celestial could destroy this ship with a thought. My sensors indicate their energy signatures are off the charts." "Indeed," Doyen added. "Our latest analysis suggests they exist partially in another dimension. They literally bend reality around them." Director Han turned to Jia. "And this is why we have concerns about sending an unmodified human to meet them. Your natural senses cannot perceive what they truly are. Your unenhanced brain cannot process the data fast enough to react." Jia had heard these arguments for years. "With respect, Director, that's exactly why I should be there. I'm the only one who will see them as they choose to present themselves, not as a collection of energy readings and threat assessments." Han's cybernetic eyes narrowed. "We tolerate your presence because of your skill with words, Diplomat Kim. But make no mistake, your refusal to enhance yourself makes you the weakest link in this delegation." The words stung, but Jia kept her face calm. She had learned to hide her feelings well, one of many human skills her enhanced colleagues seemed to have forgotten. Hours later, the Earth ship docked at Nexus Station. As the delegation prepared to disembark, Jia felt the familiar twist of worry in her stomach, a natural reaction. Her colleagues' systems would be suppressing such feelings, keeping them sharp and focused. The station's artificial gravity felt slightly stronger than Earth's. Another small disadvantage for her unmodified body. A tall, 4-armed alien in flowing robes met them at the dock. "Welcome, Earth delegation. I am First Greeter Ulvast of the Nexus Diplomatic Corps. Please follow me to your quarters." As they walked through the massive station, Jia noticed how other species moved aside for them. Some looked at the enhanced humans with fear, others with respect. but none looked at Gia. To them, she was invisible, an ordinary being among marvels. Their quarters were luxurious by space standards. Each delegate had a private room connected to a shared meeting area. When Gia entered her room, she immediately felt something was wrong. The air tasted different. The lights seemed too bright, then too dim. A faint humming sound came and went. Small things that her colleagues' enhanced senses might measure precisely, but only her fully human mind would find strange, rather than just log as data. At dinner with the other delegates, Gia mentioned her concerns. "The station seems unsettled somehow," she said. Doyen barely looked up from his meal. "My readings show all systems functioning within normal parameters. My security scans detect no unusual activity," added Commander Tay. Director Han sighed. "This is exactly the problem with remaining unenhanced, Diplomat Kim. You mistake your own anxiety for external data." Gia wanted to argue but stopped herself. There was no point. Instead, she asked, "When will the Celestials arrive?" "They're already here," Doyen said. "They arrived 3 days ago and have not left their assigned sector." "I'd like to observe them before the summit begins," Gia said. Han's cybernetic eyes flashed. "Absolutely not. No one approaches the Celestials without an invitation. The last diplomat who tried ended up with his mind wiped clean. He drools in a care facility now." "I won't approach them," Gia promised. "Just observe from a public area." After much argument, Han reluctantly agreed, but insisted Commander Tay accompany her. The observation deck overlooking the celestial sector was crowded with beings from across the galaxy, all hoping for a glimpse of the legendary beings. Through the massive viewing window, Gia could see several tall, glowing figures moving slowly through garden-like spaces. Even from this distance, they seemed to shimmer with power. "My sensors are having trouble locking onto them," Commander Tay muttered. "They keep shifting somehow." But Gia wasn't listening. She was watching. Unlike her enhanced colleague who focused on readings and data, Gia simply observed with human eyes, and what she saw troubled her. The Celestials moved stiffly. Their light dimmed and brightened in unusual patterns. One stopped mid-step and stood frozen for several minutes. "Something's wrong with them," Gia whispered. Commander Tay checked her readings again. "My systems detect no anomalies. Not in your readings. In them. Look at how they're moving. That one hasn't turned its head in 5 minutes. That one keeps repeating the same gesture. My analysis shows their behavior consistent with previous records," Tay insisted. Gia sighed. This was the true divide between her and her enhanced colleagues. They trusted their technology more than their instincts. They measured when they should feel. They analyzed when they should simply see. "We should report this to Director Han," Gia said. "Report what? Your unscientific hunch?" Tay shook her head. "We need facts, not feelings." As they turned to leave, Gia looked back one last time. One of the Celestials had moved closer to the window and seemed to be staring directly at her with eyes like twin stars. And in that moment, Gia felt certain of two things. The mighty being was afraid, and somehow it recognized her humanity when all the enhanced individuals around her could not. But who would believe the weakest member of the delegation could see what the strongest could not? The grand hall of Nexus Station sparkled with light. Delegates from 17 species gathered for the opening ceremony of the summit. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing the history of galactic cooperation. Music played from hidden speakers, a different tune for each species, all blending together. Gia stood with the Earth delegation, feeling out of place in her simple blue uniform. Next to her, Director Han wore an exoskeleton suit that gleamed silver under the lights. Commander Tay's enhanced eyes constantly scanned the room for threats. Chief Science Officer Doyen's fingers twitched as his implants processed data about everyone present. "Stop fidgeting," Han whispered to Gia. "You look nervous." "I'm not nervous," Gia replied. "I'm observing." And she was. While her colleagues relied on their technological upgrades, Gia used her natural human senses, She noticed how the four-armed Ulvast kept looking at the emergency exits. She saw how the insect-like trill delegates clustered tightly together instead of spreading out as they usually did, and most concerning, she saw that only 3 Celestials had arrived when there should have been 7. "Something's not right," she said quietly. Han's cybernetic eyes flashed with annoyance. "Your feelings again? My systems detect no irregularities." Before Gia could respond, a hush fell over the crowd. The 3 Celestials entered the hall. They towered over everyone, their blue-white skin glowing softly. They moved with grace that seemed almost unreal, as if they floated rather than walked. The tallest Celestial stepped forward to address the gathering. Its voice filled the hall, without seeming loud. "We welcome all travelers to this summit of cooperation," the Celestial said. "For too long, the races of this galaxy have—" The Celestial stopped mid-sentence. Its glow dimmed slightly. It looked to its companions with an expression Gia could only describe as alarm. Then everything happened at once. The floor shook, lights flickered, a deep boom echoed through the station. Then another, and another. "Explosions!" Commander Tay shouted, her enhanced hearing identifying the sound before anyone else could. Screams filled the hall as delegates pushed toward the exits. Director Han's implants connected to the station's systems. "Multiple detonations throughout the station," he reported, his voice mechanical and calm. "Shield generators are failing. Life support damaged in sections 12 through 47. Doyen's eyes glazed over as he accessed data streams. "Krav terrorists. They've been planning this for months. They're trying to destroy the station and everyone on it." The Celestials moved with sudden speed. They raised their arms, and a bubble of blue light spread around them, protecting nearby delegates from falling debris. "We must reach the emergency shuttles," Han ordered. "Tay, clear a path." Commander Tay's exoskeleton whirred as she moved forward, pushing aside panicked delegates with ease. Doyen followed, his enhanced mind already calculating the fastest escape route. "Gia, stay close," Han said, grabbing her arm. "Your unmodified body won't survive if this section decompresses." They pushed through the crowd, following Tay's path. Gia looked back at the Celestials, still holding their protective bubble as delegates fled to safety. Their glow was dimmer now, as if the effort cost them greatly. Another explosion rocked the station closer this time. The floor buckled beneath them. Gia lost her balance and fell. Han reached for her, but a surge of panicked delegates pushed between them. "Han!" Gia called out. "Get to Shuttle Bay 4, he shouted back as the crowd carried him away. "We'll wait for you." Gia tried to follow, but the flow of bodies pushed her in the wrong direction. Without enhanced strength, she couldn't fight against the tide. She found herself carried down a side corridor away from the main evacuation route. The crowd thinned as they reached a damaged section. Warning lights flashed red. A computerized voice announced, "Danger, hull breach imminent. All personnel, evacuate immediately." The delegates around Gia ran faster, their fear overriding any concern for others. A large reptilian being shoved her aside in its rush to escape. Gia hit the wall hard and fell to the floor, stunned. By the time she got to her feet, she was alone in the corridor. The emergency doors ahead slid shut with a hiss, sealing off the evacuation route. Behind her, another set of doors closed. She was trapped. "No," Gia whispered, pressing her hand against the sealed door. If she had Tay's strength, she could force it open. If she had Doyen's skills, she could hack the controls. If she had Han's implants, she could connect to the station's systems. But she had none of these things. She had only herself, her unmodified, human self. The air felt thinner already. The life support was failing in this section. Gia guessed she had maybe 30 minutes before oxygen levels became dangerously low. She took a deep breath and forced herself to think. There had to be maintenance, tunnels or service corridors. This was a space station. They always built backup routes. Gia examined the walls until she found a small panel marked with maintenance symbols. She pried it open with her fingers, breaking 2 nails in the process. A minor injury her enhanced colleagues would never suffer. Beyond the panel was a narrow tunnel, barely wide enough for her shoulders. Maintenance robots would use these paths, not humans. But Gia had no choice. She squeezed into the tunnel and began crawling. The metal was cold against her hands and knees. The only light came from small emergency strips along the floor. She moved forward, not knowing where the tunnel led but hoping it would take her to a safer section. After what seemed like hours but was probably only minutes, Gia's arms and legs ached. Her lungs burned from the thinning air. Sweat dripped into her eyes. These were human weaknesses: pain, exhaustion, fear. Her enhanced colleagues would be immune to such limitations. The tunnel turned sharply, then opened into a larger space. Gia crawled out and found herself in what looked like a garden. Artificial light bathed strange plants in blue-white glow. The air here was fresher, filled with oxygen from the vegetation. This must be part of the celestial sector, she realized. The garden she had seen from the observation deck. A low groan came from behind a cluster of tall, crystal-like plants. Gia moved cautiously toward the sound. What she saw made her gasp. A celestial lay on the ground, its massive body sprawled across the garden floor. But unlike the tall, perfect beings she had seen before, this one looked damaged. Its blue-white skin flickered like a failing light. In some places, its body seemed transparent, showing stars through it as if it was made of glass. From a wound in its side flowed a substance like liquid light, bright blue and sparkling. It pooled on the floor, sizzling where it touched the plants. The celestial's eyes, pure white with no pupils, turned to look at Gia. Recognition flashed in those strange eyes. "Human," the celestial said, its voice like distant thunder even, in weakness. "You are unaltered." Gia stepped closer, her fear forgotten. "Yes, I'm Gia Kim from Earth. You're hurt." The celestial tried to move but couldn't. More of the blue light blood flowed from its wound. "I am Yoon," the being said, "youngest of my kind. The attackers, they used quantum disruption weapons. They unravel our very existence." Gia looked around desperately for something to help, but what could a human do for a dying god? "Leave me," Yoon said. "Save yourself, small one. The station is failing. My time concludes." Another explosion shook the room. Ceiling panels crashed down nearby. The life support would fail completely soon. Gia should run. Find a way to the shuttle bay. Join her colleagues and escape. That's what any sensible person would do. Instead, she knelt beside the fallen celestial and placed her hand gently on its arm. The skin felt both hot and cold at once, and it hummed with energy that made her fingers tingle. "I'm not leaving you," Gia said. The dying god looked at her with surprise in its starlit eyes. "Why would you stay?" Yoon asked. "You are the weakest of your kind, without enhancements, without protection." Gia smiled sadly. Maybe being human isn't the weakness everyone thinks it is. As if to challenge her words, the station shuddered again. Warning sirens blared in the distance. Time was running out for both of them. The garden room shook again. Pieces of the ceiling fell around Gia and the wounded celestial. One large panel crashed down just meters away, sending crystal plants shattering across the floor. "We need to move," Gia said, looking at the massive being before her. Yoon was easily 3 times her size, with a body that seemed partly solid and partly made of light. "This section isn't safe." Yoon's eyes flickered. "I cannot move. The quantum disruption spreads through me." Gia looked at the blue light blood still flowing from Yoon's side. "Can I stop the bleeding somehow?" "It is not blood as you understand it," Yoon said weakly. "It is my essence, my soul, you might say." Another explosion rocked the station. The lights dimmed, then came back at half strength. The air felt thinner. With each breath Gia took, she made a quick decision. "I'm going to try to move you to that alcove." She pointed to a small space formed by fallen debris and living plants. "It looks more protected." Yoon's eyes widened. "You cannot move me, human. Your unenhanced body lacks the strength." "Watch me," Gia said simply. She positioned herself at Yoon's shoulders and began to pull. The Celestial's body was strangely light, as if it wasn't fully in this dimension. Still, it was like trying to drag a large adult. Gia's muscles strained. Sweat dripped down her face. Her lungs burned from the thinning air. Slowly, inch by inch, she moved Yoon toward the alcove. It took nearly 10 minutes to drag the Celestial, just a few meters. By the time they reached the safer spot, Gia collapsed beside Yoon, gasping for breath. "Your enhancements would save you now," Yoon observed, watching Gia struggle to breathe. "I don't have enhancements," Gia panted, "but I don't need them to do what's right." Yoon studied her curiously. "Why did you remain unaltered when your kind rushed to change themselves?" Gia leaned back against the wall of their small shelter. "I believe there's value in staying human, in feeling pain and joy and fear as we always have, in making choices based on more than data and logic." The Celestial was silent for a moment. Then, "The others of your delegation, they would have left me." "Probably," Gia admitted. "Their enhancements would tell them the statistical chances of saving you, the resources required, the risk to themselves. They would calculate that it wasn't worth it. And you did not calculate?" I felt. "There's a difference." The station groaned around them. A distant rumble suggested another explosion. The garden's plants began to wilt as life support systems failed further. Yoon's glow dimmed until the Celestial was barely visible in the darkening room. More of the blue essence leaked from the wound. "I am fading," Yoon said quietly. "You should leave, human. Find your people." Instead, Gia moved closer. She carefully lifted Yoon's massive head and placed it in her lap. The Celestial's face was as large as her entire torso, but she cradled it gently like a mother with a child. "What are you doing?" Yoon asked, confusion in those starlit eyes. "Comforting you," Gia said simply. "No one should die alone." Yoon blinked slowly. "Why do you not fear me, human?" Gia looked down at the being in her lap, a creature revered as a god throughout the galaxy, a being of immense power and ancient knowledge. Yet in this moment, she saw only pain, only vulnerability. "Because I see your pain," she answered. "And pain is universal." Yoon seemed to consider this. "Your colleagues fear us. They measure our energy, analyze our composition, calculate our threat level, but they do not see us. That's the problem with too much enhancement," Gia said. "They've traded understanding for information." As if to emphasize her point, a soft alarm chimed from Gia's pocket. She pulled out her basic communicator. The screen flashed. "Oxygen levels critical, 15 minutes remaining." Yoon saw the message. "You will die here with me." Gia put the communicator away. "Maybe. Or maybe we'll find a way out together." She felt strange saying these words. She, the weak human, offering hope to a dying god. But something told her not to give up. Not yet. Almost without thinking, Gia began to sing. It was an old lullaby her grandmother had taught her, a simple melody with words about stars watching over sleeping children. Her voice was ordinary, not enhanced with perfect pitch or amplification technology like the singers back on Earth. Just a human voice, slightly rough from the thin air, carrying emotion that no algorithm could replicate. As she sang, she stroked the smooth, strange surface of Yoon's face. The Celestial's skin felt like warm glass and pulsed slightly under her touch. The blue essence continued to leak from Yoon's wound, some of it touching Gia's legs where the Celestial's body rested against her. "Your kind would never dare such contact," Yoon whispered when Gia paused her singing. "The energy would overload their enhancements." Gia looked down and saw that some of the blue light had seeped into her skin. It created glowing patterns along her arms, following her veins. It should have frightened her, but it didn't. It felt warm. Right somehow. "Does it hurt you?" Yoon asked, watching the light spread through Gia's body. "No," Gia said truthfully. "It feels peaceful." She continued singing, her voice growing stronger despite the thinning air. The blue essence continued to flow from Yoon's wound, but now it seemed to move with purpose, flowing into Gia, circling through her body, and then returning to the celestial. "What's happening?" Gia asked, watching the light move between them. Yoon's eyes brightened slightly. "Impossible. You are channeling my essence, purifying it somehow." "Is that good?" "It has never happened before. We Celestials exist partially beyond your dimension. Our energy is too powerful for physical beings to touch, much less channel. But I'm doing it," Gia said, looking at her glowing arms. "Because you are unaltered," Yoon said with growing wonder. "Your natural body has no technological interference. Your energy patterns remain as nature designed them." The blue light flowed, faster now, creating a circuit between them, from Yoon's wound into Gia's body through her heart and back to the celestial. With each cycle, Yoon's glow strengthened slightly, and the wound seemed to shrink. "It's healing you," Gia realized, "and sustaining you," Yoon replied. "The oxygen in this section is nearly gone, yet you breathe easily now." Gia hadn't noticed, but Yoon was right. The burning in her lungs had stopped. The dizziness had cleared. She felt more awake, more alive than she had in years. "How is this possible?" she asked. "I do not know," Yoon admitted. "In all our long existence, we Celestials have never connected with another species this way. We thought none could withstand our energy." "Maybe you were only meeting the enhanced versions," Gia suggested. "Not natural humans." Yoon seemed to consider this. "Perhaps. We have observed your kind rushing to alter yourselves to become more like machines. We thought it was your natural evolution." "Not mine," Gia said firmly. She continued to sing, her voice now carrying with strange power in the failing room. The circuit of energy between them strengthened. Gia felt knowledge flowing with the light, glimpses of stars being born, civilizations rising and falling, the true nature of the beings called Celestials. They weren't gods at all, but ancient, beings who had once been much like humans, before evolving beyond physical form. And in her unmodified state, Gia could process this revelation in ways her enhanced colleagues never could. "Your people are coming," Yoon said suddenly. "I sense them searching for you." As if on cue, Gia heard distant voices calling her name. Her team had come back for her after all. "They'll help us," Gia said, but Yoon looked uncertain. "Will they understand what they see? Or will they try to separate us, breaking this connection before it is complete?" Gia looked down at their joined energy, the beautiful circuit they had created together. She understood Yoon's fear. Her enhanced colleagues would see only data, only readings. They would see a threat, not a miracle. "Trust me," she whispered to the Celestial. "I won't let them hurt you." The voices grew closer. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness of the garden room. "Gia," Director Han's voice called out. "Are you in here?" Gia took a deep breath, the blue light flowing through her veins, giving her strength. "I'm here," she called back, "and I'm not alone." 3 beams of light cut through the darkness of the garden room. Emergency lamps held by Director Han, Commander Tae, and Chief Science Officer Doyen. They moved with mechanical precision through the fallen debris and dying plants. "Life support is critical in this section," Doyen reported, his enhanced eyes scanning readings invisible to normal sight. "Oxygen levels at 17% and falling. We have 14 minutes to find her and get out," Commander Tae added. Her exoskeleton whirred as she pushed aside a large fallen panel. Director Han's cybernetic eyes adjusted to the darkness. "Gia," he called again. "Answer if you can hear us." "Over here," Gia's voice came from behind a cluster of crystal-like plants and debris. The 3 enhanced humans moved quickly toward the sound. They rounded the corner of fallen ceiling panels and stopped suddenly. Their lights fell on a scene none of them had expected. Gia sat on the floor, cradling the massive head of a celestial in her lap. But that wasn't what made them freeze. It was the blue-white light flowing between Gia and the celestial like a river of stars. It poured from the wounded being into Gia's body, circled through her in glowing patterns visible beneath her skin, then flowed back into the celestial. With each cycle, the light grew brighter. "Step away from it, Gia," Director Han commanded. His arm transformed, revealing a built-in weapon that automatically targeted the alien being. It's doing something to you. Don't. Gia raised her hand. The blue light followed her movement, leaving a trail in the air. Please, Han. Lower your weapon. This is Yoon. They're injured, not dangerous. Your biometrics are off the charts, Doyen said, his implants analyzing Gia. That energy pattern is unlike anything in our database. It's killing you. Gia shook her head. No, she said with quiet certainty. We're healing each other. The three enhanced humans exchanged looks of disbelief. Impossible, Tay declared. Celestial energy is toxic to human physiology. Our models predict total cellular breakdown within minutes of direct contact. Your models are wrong, Gia said simply. They only account for enhanced humans, not natural ones. The Celestial's eyes opened, pools of light regarding the newcomers warily. Your weapons cannot harm me, Yoon said, voice still like distant thunder even in weakness. But they could break our connection and doom us both. Han's weapon remained trained on the Celestial. Explain what you're doing to our colleague. I do nothing, Yoon replied. The human Gia offered comfort when I was dying. The connection formed on its own. My essence flows through her and she purifies it of the quantum disruption poison. It returns to me cleansed. That's not possible, Doyen insisted. Human biology can't process celestial energy patterns. Enhanced human biology can't, Gia corrected. Your implants and modifications would overload, but my unaltered body can adapt. As if to demonstrate, the blue light flowing through her pulsed brighter. Gia closed her eyes, her face showing not pain but something like peace. See the wound, she said, gesturing to Yoon's side. It's healing. The three enhanced humans looked. The terrible gap in the Celestial's side had indeed grown smaller. The pool of light blood no longer spread across the floor. Even if what you say is true, Han said, lowering his weapon slightly, we need to evacuate. This section of the station is failing. The structural integrity will collapse in 12 minutes and 37 seconds, Doyen finished, his ID enhanced mind calculating precisely. I can't move yet, Gia said. If we break this connection too soon, Yoon will die, and maybe me too. The process needs to complete. We don't have time, Tay argued. We must reach the emergency shuttles. Then go, Gia said firmly. Save yourselves, I'm staying. Han stared at her, his cybernetic eyes scanning rapidly. You would die for this being? After they've looked down on humans for centuries? Treated us like children? Not die for them, Gia corrected. Live with them. There's a difference. Yoon shifted slightly, turning those star-filled eyes toward the enhanced humans. Your kind has always fascinated us humans. You were born fully biological, yet raised to become mechanical. You trade your greatest strengths for artificial power. Our enhancements make us better, Doyen said stiffly. Stronger, faster, smarter. But at what cost? Yoon asked. The Celestial's voice sounded stronger now. You measure everything, calculate every risk, record every input. But do you still feel? Do you still connect? The three enhanced humans stood silent, their expressions unreadable behind their various technological modifications. Gia looked at her colleagues. You've been monitoring me since you arrived. What do your readings tell you about my condition? Doyen blinked rapidly, processing data. Your vital signs should indicate extreme stress, but they don't. Your brainwave patterns are unusual, expanded somehow, and there's energy moving through you that our sensors can't properly analyze. Am I dying? Gia pressed. No, Doyen admitted reluctantly. By all measurements, you're thriving. The blue light pulsed more intensely now. It lifted from Gia's skin, like a mist surrounding both her and Yoon in a cocoon of gentle radiance. The garden room grew brighter as more of the light filled the space. What's happening? Han demanded, raising his weapon again. The final stage, Yoon said. The healing completes. The light swirled faster around them. Gia felt knowledge continuing, to flow with it, Secrets of the universe, the true history of the Celestials, understanding beyond human comprehension. Yet somehow her unmodified mind could accept it, integrate it, in ways no enhanced brain could. She saw the truth. The Celestials had once been like humans, living in physical bodies. Over millions of years, they had evolved naturally, not through technology but through connection with the universe itself. They had learned to exist partially beyond normal spacetime. They had become what some called gods, but they had lost something too. In becoming more than physical, they had forgotten how to truly connect with other beings. They had become observers, not participants, powerful but alone, until now. It's beautiful, Gia whispered as the knowledge flowed through her. They're showing me how the universe works, how everything connects. The three enhanced humans watched in silence. Their sensors recorded everything, but they could not feel what Gia felt, could not understand what she was experiencing. The station shuddered around them. Warning lights flashed. 4 minutes until structural failure, Doyen announced. We must leave now. Han made a decision. Tay, prepare to separate them by force if necessary. We're not leaving Gia behind. But before Tay could step forward, the sphere of light around Gia and Yoon pulsed once, brightly, then collapsed inward. The blue energy flowed back into both beings, leaving the room dim again except for the emergency lights. Gia gently moved Yoon's head from her lap and stood up. Her skin still glowed faintly from within, and her eyes held a new light. Not quite human anymore, but not celestial either. Something in between. Yoon rose as well, the terrible wound now completely healed. The celestial towered over all of them, fully restored to its majestic presence. The connection is complete, Yoon said. And just in time, it seems. Han, Tay, and Doyen stared in disbelief. Their colleague stood before them, changed yet still Gia. The energy readings from her body made no sense to their enhanced systems. What have you become? Han asked quietly. Gia smiled. Still human, just more aware now. I understand things I didn't before. Another violent shake rocked the station. Pieces of ceiling crashed down around them. We need to get to the shuttles, Tay urged. Now! There is a faster way, Yoon said, extending a long, glowing hand. I can move us all to safety, now that my strength has returned. The enhanced humans hesitated, their systems calculating risks, analyzing the unknown. Gia stepped forward and took Yoon's hand without hesitation. She turned to her colleagues. Trust me, she said. Sometimes you need to feel your way forward, not calculate it. After a moment's pause, Han reached out and took Gia's free hand. Tay and Doyen followed, linking the chain. Ready? Yoon asked. The light engulfed them all. And in that moment, as reality shifted around them, the enhanced humans felt something they hadn't experienced in years. The simple human wonder of the impossible becoming possible. They were about to discover what Gia already knew. Sometimes, the greatest strength comes from embracing what others call weakness. One moment they were in the failing garden room. The next, they stood in a vast open area filled with people. The main evacuation hall of Nexus Station. Around them, beings from all 17 species rushed toward waiting shuttles. Gia, Yoon, and the three enhanced humans appeared in a flash of blue-white light. Many nearby aliens stopped and stared. Some fell to their knees at the sight of the fully restored Celestial. How did you do that? Doyen asked, his enhanced mind struggling to process what had just happened. We moved through space without passing, through the points between. We passed through another dimension, Gia explained. Her voice sounded different now, still her own, but with a new clarity and depth. Yoon showed me how. Commander Tay's sensors were going wild, trying to analyze Gia. Your molecular structure has changed. You're still human, but there's something else mixed in now. Gia smiled. Knowledge, understanding, connection. She turned to Yoon. We need to find the other Celestials. They may be wounded too. Ern nodded. I sense 2 of my kind still on the station. The others have already fled to safety. Director Han looked at the crowds of frightened beings around them. The evacuation is almost complete, but the station is breaking apart faster than predicted. Many won't make it to the shuttles in time. We can help, Jia said. She looked at Yoon. Together. The Celestial understood immediately. Yoon reached out one long, glowing hand. Jia took it with her smaller one. The blue light flared between them, connecting them once more. Together, they raised their free hands. A wave of blue-white energy spread outward, washing over the evacuation hall. It didn't stop there, but continued through walls and floors, expanding to cover the entire station. What are they doing? Han asked, his cybernetic eyes unable to properly process what they were seeing. They're holding the station together, Doyen said in disbelief, reading data from his implants. The structural integrity is stabilizing. Somehow they're containing the damage. Through her connection with Yoon, Jia could feel the broken parts of the station, the failing supports, the fractured hull, the leaking atmosphere, and with a thought, she and Yoon reinforced them, not physically, but with energy that strengthened the bonds between atoms themselves. We can't fix it completely, Jia said, her voice strained with effort, but we can buy time for everyone to escape. More Celestials appeared in the hall, drawn by the wave of energy. They looked at Yoon and Jia with surprise. What is this? Asked the tallest Celestial, the one who had been speaking when the attack began. A human channeling our energy? Impossible. Not impossible, Elder, Yoon replied. Only unprecedented. This human saved me when the quantum disruption weapons were killing me. Her unmodified form allowed her to purify and return my essence. The Elder Celestial moved closer, studying Jia with ancient eyes. You remain unchanged by our technology, it observed, while your companions have altered themselves to be less human. Han stepped forward defensively. Our enhancements make us stronger, faster, better able to survive in this dangerous galaxy. The Elder looked at him with something like pity. And yet, it was this unchanged human who could do what none of your enhancements could, touch our very essence without being destroyed. Another tremor shook the station stronger than before. Jia and Yoon tightened their grip on each other, pouring more energy into holding the structure together. We need help, Jia said to the other Celestials. The station is too damaged for just us to hold. For a moment, the Elder seemed to hesitate. Then it stepped forward and placed a hand on Jia's shoulder. The other Celestials followed, forming a circle around Jia and Yoon. Blue-white energy flowed between all of them, with Jia at the center, the only human in a circle of gods. The effect was immediate. The tremors stopped. The warning alarms fell, silent. The station stabilized completely. The shuttles are launching, Tay reported, watching the evacuation monitors. 87% of all beings accounted for and moving to safety. We can hold the station together long enough for everyone to escape, the Elder Celestial announced. Its voice carried throughout the hall without any need for speakers or amplification. The evacuation continued more calmly now. Species that had been pushing and fighting to reach the shuttles now moved in orderly lines. Many bowed to the circle of Celestials as they passed. But what drew more attention was the human woman standing among them, glowing with the same light. Han, Tay, and Doyen watched in amazement. Their enhanced senses recorded everything, but they couldn't fully comprehend what they were seeing. Their colleague, the one they had called weak, now stood among the most powerful beings in the galaxy. As an equal, hours passed. The final shuttles prepared to depart. Only the Celestials, Jia and her 3 colleagues, remained in the vast, empty hall. It is time for us to leave as well, the Elder said. This station cannot be saved, but we have done what we could. Come, with us, Yoon said to Jia. There is much more I could show you, much more we could learn from each other. Jia looked at the Celestial, then at her human colleagues. I can't, she said gently. My place is with humanity, especially now. What do you mean? Han asked. Jia turned to her enhanced colleagues. The blue light still glowed faintly beneath her skin, but it was fading, becoming a part of her rather than something separate. The Celestials have been watching us for a reason, she explained. They've been searching for beings capable of true empathy without technological mediation. Only such beings can help them, and us, evolve to the next stage. Evolution through technology has been our path for decades, Doyen argued. It's how we've advanced so quickly. Gia shook her head. But it's not the only path, and maybe not the best one. The elder Celestial stepped forward. For too long, we have watched species embrace enhancement at the cost of what makes them unique, it announced. We ourselves evolved naturally over millions of years. We never replaced our bodies with machines or altered our minds with computers. Are you saying our enhancements are wrong? Tay asked defensively. Not wrong, Gia said before the Celestial could answer. Just not the only way forward, and maybe not the way that will take us furthest. Han looked at his cybernetic hands, then at Gia's glowing but fully human ones. All this time, we thought you were holding humanity back by refusing enhancements. And all this time, I was just trying to hold on to what makes us human in the first place, Gia replied softly. The final shuttle waited for them. The Celestials prepared to leave in their own way, simply fading from this dimension into another. What happens now? Doyen asked. Gia smiled. We tell humanity what we've learned here, that our greatest strength isn't in becoming more like machines, but in embracing the emotional and intuitive capabilities that technology cannot replicate. Yoon reached out once more, touching Gia's face gently. We will be watching, Gia Kim. Humanity has a special place in the galaxy now because of you. Because of us, Gia corrected. Because I was human enough to help you, and you were wise enough to accept that help. The Celestials began to fade, their forms becoming transparent. The Elder spoke one last time before disappearing completely. They called you weak, human, but we have seen your true strength. When the Celestials were gone, Gia and her 3 colleagues boarded the final shuttle. As they pulled away from the damaged station, Gia looked out the viewport at the stars. She could see them differently now. Not just as points of light, but as living parts of a connected universe. The knowledge the Celestials had shared with her would change humanity's path forever. And it had come not through enhancement or technology, but through the simple human acts of compassion and connection. They called me weak, Gia said quietly as the station disappeared behind them, until I held a dying god in my arms. Han looked at her with new respect in his cybernetic eyes. And now? What are you now, Gia? She smiled, the last traces of blue light fading from her skin, leaving her looking human once more, but forever changed within. Just human, she answered. But I'm beginning to think that's the strongest thing we can be, the end.